Welcome back to the Dragon course. In this chapter, I'll talk about the move orders. And first of all, there's one little move order trick we have to know about as black as part of our repertoire. And I also would like to talk about different move orders as black if you want to play the dragon, besides the one I recommend, the pure dragon. Also, what are the ups and downs of the so-called accelerated dragon? And there are also different move orders to reach all these different versions of the dragon. So I'll try to touch on that. I think it's very important also to know and understand. And sometimes, perhaps if you want to slightly go out of your comfort zone or expand a little bit your repertoire, you could switch things around. In fact, my last dragon game I played via the accelerated dragon move order. So there's that. So first of all, after e4, c5, knight f3, d6, that's our order, d4, c, knight d4, knight f3, knight 6, knight 3, g6. There's one thing white can do, which we haven't touched on because it didn't really fit into any chapter. That is bishop e3, bishop g7, f3. So far, Yugoslav attack, so far so good. Castle, and now bishop c4 first. That is interestingly clever. That is not really principled, but it's a good attempt to take us out of our repertoire. But fortunately, I managed to stay back there. Now the point is that after knight c6, if white goes bishop e3, well, if white goes queen d2, we're back to bishop c4 system of the Yugoslav attack. We're all happy. But after knight bishop e3, we're slightly tricked. Now, you would think we can take on d4, bishop d4, and play bishop e6. But that is not so simple. Now, instead of queen d2, a castle short we don't really worry about, but instead of queen d2, white's got queen e2 or queen d3, intending long castle. And that is quite dangerous for us because our usual plan of queen a5, b5 is no longer working. So this would really be trouble. And there also is bishop d7, that is the main line. And there is a lot of theory here. After queen d2, knight d4, bishop d4, b5, as well as h4, which is even larger, h5, queen d2. Now I've touched on this position in the Yugoslav attack introduction chapter where I speak about options. Now this is also fine, but it's a massive theory that I want to avoid. Fortunately, they came to rescue a very clever move order, and that is the move queen to a5 first. I was very happy to find this. The exclamation mark I put is for the cleverness of this. The idea is simple. After queen d2, we now take on d4, bishop d4, and go bishop e6, and we are back in our line. Very happy, very proud. And as for queen e2 and queen d3, now queen e2, we've got knight e4. Knight on d4 is hanging because we haven't yet captured on d4, because if we had included it, this wouldn't work. Bishop g7, knight c3, bishop c3, for example, or queen e4. But knight e4 now works. Knight e6, we got bishop c3 check. Black is winning. And queen d3 is actually possible. But here we have a few options. We also have knight d7, knight c5. But I like the move bishop d7. That's what I would like to recommend. Long castle, rook f8. And here we get fed extra tempo on the queen on d3 with knight e5 eventually. And in a sharp opening like dragon, these tempos are really crucial. If the queen is on d2 here, we have major tabia, a very old variation that is incredibly dubious for black. But the idea behind it is certainly not without a point. It's very sound. The idea is definitely there. But there, black is just not in time because white's attack is faster than black's. Here, with an extra tempo, all our ideas with knight e5 and then b5, knight c4, with that extra move that we have, they're all going to be justified. And after king b1, we play rook a b8, h4, knight e5, queen d2. Now we've got that extra tempo on the queen, had to move. And now we go b5, g4, knight c4, and having an extra tempo after bishop c4, bc, we're doing quite well. Well, the position is, of course, still very complex and very double-edged, but I'd like to show you the points here. So if white goes king a1, usually that's what he does. Then I'll try to go rook b1. It protects the b2 pawn with rook, a2 pawn with the knight. So it seems as though it's very hard for us to generate counterplay, but there are some tricks. So one is rook b6, h5, rook c b8, and after rook b1, there's a very beautiful point here. Perhaps you can try to find it yourself. A very nice tactic, and that is bishop g4. we deflect the f3 pawn, fg, knight takes e4, we deflect the c3 knight, and after knight e4, very pretty mate, queen takes a2, king a2, and rook a6 mate. Of course, white could have deviated somewhere, but it was not so simple. In fact, this flows naturally from the way the opening went. So queen d3 here, not very dangerous for us, and that is how I dealt with this move order issue. A very proud moment. First, a small panic because I had the repertoire nicely figured out, and then it occurs to me that, oh wow, there is that very rare thing, and suddenly I thought, oh, do we have to now learn a whole new system just because of this move order that nobody plays? Fortunately, that's been solved. And now let's talk about general dragon move orders. There is one fun little fact, by the way. In the Pirk, after e4 d6, d4 knight f6, knight c3 g6, knight f3, bishop g7, bishop e3, castle, queen d2. This is one of the systems against Pirk. It's possible to transpose into the dragon via sometimes c5 on castle, cd, knight d4 order. So this is kind of a fun fact, you could say. But usually, of course, the dragon really happens after the move c5 in the Sicilians. And now after knight f3, d6 is our dragon, the normal classical dragon. And there is also the accelerated dragon, and that is could be knight c6 first or g6 first. Essentially what it is knight c6, d4, cd, knight d4, and g6. Black somehow accelerates the dragon, so-called, and after knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6. The point is that white cannot go for the Yugoslav attack this way, because if he tries, let's say f3, castle, queen d2, we saved on the move d6. That's of course huge. We hit him with d5, full extra tempo. So here white has to start with bishop c4, castle, and now bishop b3. And here we play d6, f3. We avoided this queen d2 long castle system with the bishop on f1. And here we could play, for example, queen a5 and be happy. This is just what I mentioned a few minutes ago. The problem with this, however, is that in this position, that is the only position. Well, let's say this would be the only order with which you could try to get it. If you start with knight f6, knight c3, g6, there's a problem with knight takes c6 and e5, so that's not there. But with this order, there's a problem. There is the move c4 as well. That's the so-called Marussi bind. And although that is not necessarily bad, and it's been played against me by Magnus Carlsen, in fact, in 2021. I managed to win that game as white, but not necessarily out of the opening. The opening, black had a decent position, but it's just a different type of positions, and it's just not part of this repertoire. But it's definitely possible for black to allow it. But then you have to, of course, study these positions. It's just very different, very complex positions that you need to study. There should be a separate course on that. Very likely it's out there as well. Besides, the question is now, do you go e4, c5, knight f3, g6? After d4, take, knight c6, let's say you got that thing. Or do you go to knight c6? Well, knight c6 allows a few things. First of all, first, actually, and foremost, there is the Rossolimo, so-called, a very principled system, the one that Fabiano played against Magnus Carlsen in his first couple of games at the World Championship match. And that is something to study and something we don't need to address if we play 2d6. And if you play 2g6, you don't need to address Rossolimo as well. But then you do have to deal with a few things. First of all, c3. White has some sort of a good alapin. We've got a pawn on g6. So you have to deal with a peculiar alapin. For example, after a d5, well, white can of course take, but you can also go e5, and you've got the pawn on g6, so a specific position. And also there is the move after d4 cd, besides knight d4, there is the move queen d4. And that is also a serious sideline that black has to deal with. But yeah, if you play 3c4, after bishop g7, d4 u transpose essentially to the Marcoussi bind as well. So accelerated dragon, you can play that. So first of all, why accelerated dragon at all? Now the only real point I see why we would do accelerated dragon is to avoid the variations with queen d2, knight c6, and now you avoid a long castle and also g4, but probably a long castle d5 is what people try to avoid, which we have obviously solved with our course. But if you decide to avoid that for whatever reason, then accelerated dragon is something to consider. If you do want accelerated dragon, you definitely have to deal with the Marcoussi bind, regardless of the order. If you go through knight c6, you've got also bishop b5. If you go through g6, you've also got c3 and d4 cd, queen d4. That is as much as I know about the move orders. I think that is also all there is, but you never know. There's sometimes some clever little nuances that there are, but that in short is the story. But again, my course is the Dragon course. I think we're good here. So thank you for watching, and see you again.